Up seventh graders.
Well, thanks for being with us for Bible study today, guys. We are turning to chapter 20.
Chapter 20, and again, Proverbs is generally good advice to all of us, but it is kind of read through the lens of a father talking to a son, and I think possibly, Michael, and it could just be that I'm living through this, so this is the situation I find myself in. But I think one good way to frame this is kind of imagining that son or daughter going off to college and the kind of things you say to them. And right off the bat here in chapter 20, we have, I think, a piece of wisdom that could be helpful to lots of young people, to lots of older people as well. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is a brawler, and whoever is led astray by it is not wise. And, clearly the Proverbs is a book that appreciates one having control of their faculties. And so losing that control to alcohol is going to be decidedly unwise for the proverb. But as I imagine this advice given to a young person about to go out on their own, it's maybe surprising that we waited till chapter 20. I think I might have put this a little sooner. Having just sent a kid off to college, I think it would have been on page 1 for me.
Yeah, this is an easy copy paste text message right here. Though I think that we do miss some of the forces that lie behind this, Clint, and I don't want to transition too quickly here, but I think this ties into the verse that I chose first. That's verse 5. The purposes in the human mind are like deep water, but the intelligent will draw them out. And the thing, I think that speaks to verse 1 and about this idea of wine and strong drink, is that often we turn to these things for reasons that we're not entirely conscious of. Lots of times, people turn to things that make them feel like they're out of control because they feel out of control in other areas of their life. And to a young man or young woman going to college, I think the advice would be, it's important to pay attention to yourself and to learn, how am I doing? Am I eating well? Am I mentally doing well? Because if you're not healthy in other areas of life, this temptation becomes even stronger, I think.
Yeah. I think the Proverbs just has a decided leaning toward all things reflective, all things thoughtful. I had also highlighted verse 5, the idea that we as faith people are called to think deeply about things and not necessarily to take things at surface value. That part of intelligence, part of wisdom is the diving down to see if we can discern the true meaning, the true purpose. And, not to beat up on America, I don't know, in my experience, Michael, if we live in a culture that necessarily treasures that approach or reinforces that approach. I mean, Americans have typically short attention spans. We like new things. We like shiny things. We like fun things. We like convenient things. But unfortunately, I think our strengths are often not, in general, that we can really mine the depths of something and bring out the hidden meanings in it. And so this is, I think, a good call to all of us that live in a world in which maybe is not always run like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think that there's an unfortunate, I don't think the right word is stigma, Clint, but there is an unfortunate hesitation culturally to slow down long enough to really ask questions of self. There's this idea that if you spend an inordinate amount of time being self-reflective, of being connected to your feelings, being inquisitive about your body and how it is. Am I exhausted? Do I not feel healthy? All these sorts of things. I think that there's this sense that you are you're wasting time, that you're not out there doing life. Instead, you're sort of sitting back in the shadows. And I think that's unfortunate because, at least in my own lifetime, there have been numerous things I've asked the question why about. Well, why did I say that in that encounter? Or why did I respond the way that I did? And as I followed the path, I realized it had nothing to do with that particular moment. It was only sort of an opportunity for previous things to come out. Sometimes it's just a habit that I learned from my family. Other times it's a anxiety that I carry with me that, oh, they're going to think this about me, or they're going to say this about me. And when I'm really reflective about it, I realize, oh, that's not true. So I think it's just a helpful reminder to those of us, especially those who maybe are particularly tempted to avoid plumbing the depths of self and character and personality, that there is value to be had there, that sometimes slowing down to reflect, to have devotion, to learn more about God and then therefore about self, that can be a significant part of growing in a character of wisdom.
Yeah, I don't know if I could make this point sociologically because I don't know that I have the evidence or the background for it, but I suspect that part of the practice of our culture is exactly to keep ourselves busy enough not to do this. I mean, we all know that's a personal temptation. We fill up our calendars, we get busy, we volunteer for a million things so that we never have to have that moment of quiet where we have to really come to terms with some things in our life that may need attention or some things in ourselves that may need attention. And culturally speaking, it seems to me that there may be some truth in that as well. Just before that, I had also circled verse 3. It's honorable to refrain from strife, but every fool is quick to quarrel. We've seen this again. It's interesting. Proverbs feels the need to say the same thing over and over again in various ways, probably because we are so slow to get some of it. If we jump off the handle, fly off the handle regularly, if we have a hair trigger, if we're quick to fight with people and be angry with people, then Proverbs is going to seriously question whether we're being wise in those moments. It is honorable to refrain from strife. Again, it's interesting to think that the honor found in disagreeing with someone is in not attacking them rather than confronting them. So that's a good one.
Yeah. I have verse 6, many proclaim themselves loyal, but who can find one worthy of trust? I just wanted to bring that out. I'm not sure that I have much to say about it. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's one thing to proclaim that you are a friend with someone or that you're loyal to someone, and then to go on and to betray their trust or to work behind their back. This is an unfortunately common reality. People who say one thing and do another. And as it relates to relationships, we should be loyal as those people trying to follow Christ.
Yeah. Again, thinking of speaking to a college student, verse 13, do not love sleep or else you will come to poverty. Open your eyes and you will have plenty of bread. In other words, don't be lazy. Get up, go to class, get up, eat breakfast, get up, exercise, get up, study. But that sleep, as good as it might feel to stay in bed well past the time we need to, is not likely. I can't think of a scenario in which, other than, I guess, the idea of being well rested, sleep is going to move us forward in our life. So do not over-love sleep. I think any of us that have had a great nap or a good night's sleep know that sleep is wonderful, but too much of a good thing turns into a bad thing. And then also I highlighted the one right underneath of it. Bad, says the buyer, then goes away and boasts. You'd have to shoehorn this a little bit, Michael, but I would say this maybe fits into the broader trend of how we conduct ourselves within the corporate or the business world. This Proverbs has a lot to say about transactions and interactions of buying and selling. And this is that person who, bad mouths and tries to work a deal and then goes away and boasts about it. Oh, I took advantage. And I think behind this, we just, again, hear that general call to honesty, to integrity, to uprightness in our dealings with people. And that would be a hard sermon to build from this verse, but I think this verse fits into enough other themes in Proverbs that I feel comfortable in saying that it's in there.
Yeah, I moved on here, Clint. I'm just going to say this right off the bat. This is a tough one. Verse 19, a gossip reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with a babbler. And that will hit you right between the eyes. That's right on target. I think that it is a complicated and even in some cases challenging conversation to have about gossip. We explain it away in lots of different ways. How can I be praying for Miss Susie or whatever the thing is that we say? Really, I think this points out the innate hypocrisy in it, right? When you spend time with those who are spreading information about other people, you can be confident that if they're comfortable doing that about others, they'll be confident doing the same about you. And the converse is also true for you, that if you're willing to associate with those people, you are likely in the midst of disseminating and propagating information that's not yours to give. And on one hand, I think we tend to, in lived life, explain away gossip as it doesn't really hurt anybody. But it eats away at the fabric of relationships. That community is the centerpiece of God's restorative work in the world. And when we are out there spreading things about people's lives, when we are therefore undercutting God's work in other people in a way that's not ours to do, I think we occupy a place that is dangerous. And talking about gossip is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to talk about, it's uncomfortable to listen to and to engage with. But it's essential as a person of faith to be the dead end of information that shouldn't be shared. And we need to commit to do that.
Yeah, and this fits themes we've seen in James, we've already seen in Proverbs, the idea of controlling your tongue, the idea of limiting your speech, the idea of speaking wisely, and passing on information needlessly, passing on negative information about others. Clearly, that all falls outside the boundaries of wise speech. And you think about the mechanism of gossip. In other words, what does gossip do? It elevates me as the one who knows something. It detracts from my neighbor. It gets whoever I'm telling it on my side in some way or another. But it does harm. It doesn't need those things that don't need to be known. And we've all done it. We all wrestle with it. I think when you live in communities like ours where there are a lot of people and a lot of information and there's a lot of stuff out there, did you see this? Oh, did you know that? Did you... There's just, it's sort of like sleeping in too long. There's just no upside to it. There's no benefit to it. The things that we think it provides for us are not things that we need. And I would have put that one in chapter 1 also, Michael.
Yep. This one, in the beginning of the movie where it says piracy is not a victimless crime, I would put gossip is not a victimless crime. An estate quickly acquired in the beginning will not be blessed in the end. That's verse 21. I'm just going to summarize it. This isn't entirely what's in mind here, but there is no such thing as a sustainable get-rich-quick scheme. So if it sounds too good to be true, it is.
Yeah, when the Nigerian prince emails you, don't jump on it. It's not good. My next one, I don't know what else you got, Michael.
Got 22.
Yep.
Do not say, I will pay evil, wait for the Lord, and he will help you. I don't know if you agree with this, Clint. I feel like, as is this is true across Proverbs, that some Proverbs or some wisdom hits each of us differently depending upon our personality and our habits. I think for some people, the call to not repay evil is the ultimate challenge because the memory of it just gets locked into their souls. This inherent need to right the tables, to get justice metered out. The idea that the Lord will have it worked out in time is just, for some people, I think, absolutely incomprehensible. And so as I see that, when I think, that's one of those far easier said than done. And I do think it would take practice for all of us to trust God, that God has it under control.
Yeah, several other parts in Scripture, including Romans, do not take revenge, do not avenge, leave room for the Lord. All easier said than done. I think in most of us, there is the pleasant idea of getting even with those who have wronged us, and it takes some effort to live past that. So I've just got a couple left. Michael 27, the human spirit is the lamp of the Lord, searching every inmost part. We could have tied this into where we started with going deep, but the idea that there is within us God working to bring all of us to Him. And this would preach. I think you could hook this together with several other scriptures, and the idea that we want to draw out those deep parts of ourself and bring them to God, or let God see them. And that is our pain, our addictions, the things that we hide from ourselves. And I think this is a verse that you could unpack for quite a while, probably. And then finally, the glory of youth is their strength. The beauty of the aged is their gray hair. We've talked before this idea that that wisdom is generally the real estate of the older. Not always, but there are some very wise young people. There are some very foolish old people. It's funny though that you tend to get wisdom after you need it. It's generally late in the process.
I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit here, Clint, but as I reflect on this verse, I feel like I'm surprised on both sides how little appreciation there is for the other. And I'm not saying exclusively, but sometimes I do think that adults miss the great strength that youth have in what here it's called strength, but also you have a sense of their passion, right? Young people tend to have very, very tunnel visioned kind of experiences of the world, and they see something and they get after it. And I think lots of times that's perceived as frustrating to adults, but there is strength in that. There's a gift that youth give us in their desire to move forward society, the world. And I think lots of times youth fail to recognize the wisdom and importance of those who are farther down the road, that maybe they have something to offer a conversation that you don't understand. And I think sometimes those get out of whack. I think we sometimes fail to hear and ascertain and appreciate the wisdom of the other and the gifts that the other brings to the table. And I think there are some who model that well. Even here at the church, we have some adults who have just a beautiful love for youth, for young people. And they're able to somehow both bring their wisdom into the life. We have this especially in our confirmation mentors, those who have lots of life experience and have read the book of Luke for 20 years with 8th graders. And yet every year they've sat down with a new 8th grader, they've read the book, they've asked questions, they've answered questions themselves of their own faith. And that, I think, is a beautiful image.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you certainly underestimate youth while you have it. And then maybe, older people and younger people can both underestimate each other. And so, yeah, those moments where they get a chance to learn from one another, hear from one another. And again, not to be cultural, but this is not a thing that we do naturally. And I don't know if that's Americans. In some Asian cultures, there's a kind of a reverence toward the elderly. And so young people kind of grow up with that. That's not the way that we do things here. And so I think in a church context, for instance, it's very difficult to bring together 70-year-olds and 20-year-olds and do something that somehow touches both of them, connects with all of them, gives them an opportunity to fellowship with one another. Intergenerational stuff is not easy in our culture, but it's too bad because we have so much to learn from each other.
Yeah, I'd say that in my work with youth, the youth who are most able to give time and attention to their elders tend to have the greatest marks of wisdom. And I suspect that may also go the other way, that those adults who have the patience to spend time with youth are exhibiting a mark of wisdom.
Yeah. And finally, I don't want to keep you guys longer than we should, but I feel like we maybe should comment on verse 30. Blows that wound cleanse away evil. Beatings make clean the innermost parts. That's a proverb that, we probably just as soon cut out of this book and leave behind. But I think if there's wisdom behind it, it's the idea that often the things that have taught us the most are the hardest things that we went through. Wisdom is not easily gained. One does not find wisdom when all things go well and life is easy. Wisdom is found in the nooks and crannies of difficult experiences. And if we could let the proverb, if we could give the author a little grace and say, boy, they could have written that better, perhaps, or maybe we can even say maybe it just sounds better in Hebrew. I don't think this is a passage that we should take about being beaten and punished, though that's possible, but in the bigger sense of those things in our life that wound us, they often are the very things that offer us wisdom. And it's an unfortunate reality, but I think an accurate one.
A lot in there today, Clint.
Yeah, it's a good chapter.
Glad that you're with us, friends. We continue on tomorrow with our study in Proverbs. We look forward to seeing you 2 o'clock Central Standard Time. Be blessed.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for spending time with us today as we study Scripture together. If you haven't already, we would invite you to follow us on Facebook or subscribe on YouTube. It's a great way to get notified when these studies happen every day at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Of course, if you've already done that, we would love for you to be able to give the video a like, to share it if you're on Facebook. This is a great way for other people to find the Bible study and be able to join us in this time studying Scripture. If this is your first time here, welcome. It's such a joy to have you be with us this day, and we would love to get to know you better. We would love if you wouldn't mind just taking a minute to go to our website, fpcspiritlake.org/welcome. We'd love to get your name and email address, and we'll follow up with you personally to thank you for spending time with us this day. And for each and every person that is able to study Scripture and engage in this conversation, we want to say thank you. We look forward to our next time with you every weekday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And until then, God bless.